Awesome.
Yeah,
So,
hang on, I'm gonna turn Doug Ford down over here.
no worries, no worries. So for my first question, I just kind of want to know, in your experience with interviewing, what are some of the strategies that you use to conduct meaningful interviews?
Hmm. I um I don't know, I was thinking about before talking to you today, because I wasn't sure what we were going to talk about, is like explaining the stuff that someone like me who's been in this for so long do without even thinking about it anymore. And so because of that, I'm afraid I'm going to give you horrible answers. So I'm really sorry. But like I was thinking the other day of just like the decisions that you have to make, like so many quick decisions throughout the day to get your story together on tight timelines, if you've got those, if you're damned with those.
Yeah.
But like, so doing the interviews, one thing, like if you do have, this is just sort of like a logistical thing that might help you, is keep it short. Because if you have those tight timelines, and like I would love to interview someone for hours, and I did that the other day. I was talking to somebody and was just so fascinated by what they had to say that I just kept going and going, and then afterwards I'm like, oh, like I just like screwed myself over, because now I have got all this content and I've got to dig through the whole thing. And
Yeah.
so like that's just a practical thing. So kind of having an idea of where your story is and really kind of banging that off. And really just kind of, I mean, being open to what this person's going to say to kind of, help that maybe steer the direction of things, but also, have an idea of where your story's at too. And, just the stuff like researching, learn how to say their name. Um, uh, and I also just like, because a lot of times in a story too, you'll have to explain like, this person with this position at this organization, that sort of thing. I find it really helpful to ask them how they would describe their job. That kind of like, this is just another practical thing to that might help you and your story explain what their position is, because so many times people will watch and read a story and like and hear the name of this position but not know exactly what that means. So I think adding some context like that is great. I feel like this is so lame. And then that little trick that everyone talks about at the end, like, is there anything else you would like to add? And like that's where the gems come from. Like everyone says that all the time because it's so true. And I mean, and this is other like an obvious thing too, is just listening to the person. Like you've got your plan in mind, your brilliant questions all set up and whatever, but be open to picking up from something that they're saying and let that lead things in a different direction. And that's also where those gems come from too. And keeping questions tight, that helps you out. Like you'll watch people on TV, some reporters, and like they want to seem like the smartest person in the room and that sort of thing, and have humility. Like you don't know all the answers. That's why you're asking the questions. And whether it is, a technique you use, or whether it's you don't understand something, and that's okay, because the people watching probably don't understand too. So let's all learn together. And I think that that's, the sort of trend we're seeing now too, maybe, I don't know, of, like that this is a whole process. We're all in this together. Like, where are we in this world? Where are we headed? Let's be on this journey. I don't know, maybe that's all garbage.
No, it's amazing, and it's very, very useful. I definitely like that's so great.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
Also, so I kind of want to, what I'm kind of focusing on is what it's like for journalists to interact with activists in the community. And I
Mm.
saw some of your work around Black Lives Matter, and that kind of
Mhm.
leads me to ask, have you found any differences between interviewing activists or community figures as opposed to your other sources, like say a member of the general public?
Hmm. Well, I mean, one difference is so many of these activists give a lot of interviews. So they're more experienced with it. And boy, they give great answers too.
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, that makes your job pretty easy when you've got these, bang on clips that really help you with your story. So I mean, with a lot of these activists, you just kind of say, hey, what's up? And they'll give you some
Yeah.
good stuff to work with.
Yeah.
Whereas members of the public, they're not experienced and they're nervous too. So I think, talking to whether it's like a man on the street, like, hey, everyday person, what do you think about this? To really just kind of speak to them as a regular person and to help kind of put them at ease because if this is a camera thing, your camera is in front of them, you've got a microphone and you're used to doing all that stuff, so this is nothing to them, or to you rather, but to them it's like, oh boy, like what do I do with my hands and that sort of thing. So I feel like approaching them and just saying like, hey, how are you, like, but also launching into your question right away, so it doesn't give them a chance to say, no, I'm out of here. Because sometimes you get assigned to like get those streeters and it could be a disaster.
Yeah.
So you gotta take the lead and launch into it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I definitely, I obviously am still a student at this, but like I always find streeters to be kind of the most difficult thing to do, just because they're kind of, it's hard to navigate sometimes.
Yeah.
Um,
But you know what, though, it's such a I think it's a great skill to get. Like if you can get good at it,
yeah.
first of all, your boss loves you because it always works so well. So if they know that you're a person who could do that, it helps them a lot. And so like I try to just like go into it thinking, we're going to make this happen. And like, I'm going to approach people. I mean, it depends what the story is, but with a smile and seem like, hey, I'm really interested in talking to you. And a lot of times they'll say, no, I don't want to say anything, but then they'll say something.
Yeah.
So stick with it.
Yeah, of course. And so when it comes to like more difficult issues, how do you kind of approach these interviews, especially with, for example, with Black Lives Matter, with dealing with things like racial injustice? How do you kind of approach these sort of interviews?
Sure. Well, I mean, like I, take stock of who I am and recognize that, and I kind of referenced this before, that I don't know everything. I don't know what it's like to live, as a Black woman, and to be really conscious of that. And I also just feel like going into, a difficult interview as something that's really emotionally charged, that you just go into it as like a human being. We all have this shared experience, and what a gift that people want to share the story with you. So you are appreciative of that. And there's nothing wrong with having a heart. And I mean, you probably don't want to be bawling while you're interviewing them or anything like that, but to just connect, person to person, that what a fabulous, opportunity you have to make that connection with another person that other people in other lines of work and whatever don't get to do. So how awesome is it that you could just speak to this person, whoever they happen to be?
Yeah, of course. Yes. So, and with these types of interviews, with these topics that you kind of know that they're going to be sensitive going into, what is the like preparation process like?
Um, well, one thing, if, I mean, depending on what the topic is, but like not preparation wise, but when you kind of like begin the interview, be sensitive to where they are. And and give them time, and show them respect. And you don't have to rush through things. And schedule your day maybe to know that you might have to spend a little extra time doing this, and that's okay. And research wise, like yeah, like find out as much about the person as you can before you go into it, or about the issue and that sort of thing, which probably is a no-brainer. But I think you just want to be conscious that you want to be able to show, their story, with you treat it with more respect than like whatever news of the day happens to come along. You got a clip from the counselor and that sort of thing, just to be open to letting them share their story. I don't know if that's helpful, but again, just going into things with an open heart and making them feel at ease too. They want to know that they're talking to someone who's actually listening to them.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's great advice. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna use some of that in the future. And so when it comes to, you kind of mentioned it a little bit at the beginning, but do you think there's any interviewing, like what are some of the interviewing kind of like no-nos that journalists should try to avoid?
Okay, I'll think of something, but for some reason, one of my pet peeve, everyone has a pet peeve and whatever, but like what drives me crazy when I hear like people on TV talking is, I had the opportunity to speak to blah, 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 like just like I talk to them like that. I don't know, saying the opportunity thing, that always drives me crazy, but that's just a personal thing. But I think like the no-no is trying to make yourself sound smart. I mean, you want to be well prepared and well researched and all that sort of thing, but it's not about you. It's about the other person. And this is also something I kind of mentioned before, but like you'll sometimes watch interviews and hear an answer that the person's giving and think like, oh, like I want to know more about that. But you could see it in the interviewer's head that they already had lined up their next question. And so they just jumped over, an opportunity to take things in a different direction and to get something new. Like that might be the opportunity to find out something that no one else has covered before, that is the news making thing. But they just lost that opportunity.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's, I think definitely actually active listening and not just being too stuck to the script. Yeah,
yes, active listening. That's the school term. Yes. Okay.
And I guess my kind of final question is, do you have any other parting tips for journalists who are looking to improve their interviewing style?
Like I'm going to think of 1,000 things after this. Just like the open-ended questions. Be open to an answer that you haven't already thought of, and be curious. Like I'm sure that's another like school thing that you hear all the time too. But really, like it's like, because whatever you're talking to this person about, like this is their thing, like they live and breathe whatever it is probably, and because of that, kind of like the interview we're doing right now, that they might not think of things that like the everyday person, might not be conscious of. So give them that opportunity, I guess, to explain the thing that they know so well they can't explain it.
Yeah. Thank you. That's kind of all I have for today.
Super.
Thank you so much for all the great advice.
Oh gosh, I hope I was helpful. And if there are any other questions, or if I could offer any other clarifications, or whatever else you may need, please feel free to reach out.
Of course. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh, you bet. All the best to you. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.